what is the basic difference between Spring and Spring Boot? This is the question that we are going to cover today. And now let's open whiteboard. So why the Spring was get famous? What was the Spring is all about? If we're not in the nutshell, if we talk about what is a Spring. So when it came up, it would come at the two, how you can say, one is specifically is a DI, dependency injection, or its a correlated term is also known as the inversion of current, IOC. So what are these are the mean? It's basically used to meant or used to uh, loose coupling. Loose coupling of creation of the object, when you are developing, like this is your app and you're going to write a code, you would be requiring multiple references of the class, another classes, and you just keep on recreation or recreation of the object. If any changes is required, you have to change entirely everywhere. Okay, so it was a kind of tight coupling, okay, because it was tightly coupled, and we have a really hard to manage the things, and the number of objects that we are going to create, that's also going to on increasing. So what the other solution we have came up? So Spring thought that why not do it in such a way, okay, your app is going to require a few kind of object, okay, in multiple places, and these might be in nature of the singleton, prototype, or whatever the life cycle of an object. So ask the application, hey, ask the application, what are the objects or what are the classes that you would require when you are going to develop or in your lifespan of your application. So let's say I would be required C, D, and E. Okay. So what the Spring container will do, it will look after the metadata. The metadata is just pull up the information against C, D, and A, and create the object D1, D2, and E3, let's say. And whenever your application is required, it will be supplied directly from here. If it is the singleton in nature, it will be supplied in the multiple at different locations. So that is all about inversion of control. We have inverted the control from main application to externalized it, and the injection of the object is known as basically a dependency injection. So that was the major feature. Okay, now the things are, these are the major things that Spring was get popular. But now let's over the history, the things are going, and the computers also working for the same thing. So what happened, they have thought of a different aspect. Say to compete, they have came up with the other module like web, security, okay, and uh, MVC, MVC, and AOP, okay, and they have come up with a vast range of the modules they have came up. Okay, so Spring nowadays, or even a few years back, is more not only about the dependency injection IOC, but that's not sure, the primarily feature was the IOC and dependency injection. So everything was going well, but why the Spring Boot has been introduced? There is one drawback over here. Okay, once we have a developer, it needs to figure it out. Okay, it has to figure it out what it will be requiring. Web MVC, okay, good. Core, okay. Security, okay. And if he bundles with the war file, then what he has to do, we have to create a build, Maven build, and that's going to generate a war. And for the war, what we have to do we have to deploy it in some kind of server. Okay, let's say this is the server where it's going to deploy. Okay, and if everything goes well, it would be accessible by another customers. Okay, if anything went wrong, this recycles again and again. This was a quite painful process. Okay, and most importantly, most of the configurations, server, which ports are running, what to do, what not to do. These are the overhead of the a developer. Now, the Spring Boot community came up with an idea. What the idea they have came up? They have thought, we have observed in the past, most of the configurations, whatever a developer is doing is common one. So why not we are going with the default configuration and let the developer override of them? So it's basically one term is a convention over configuration. Configuration. Okay. So it's basically nothing. So what is this here thought? Basically, Spring Boot assumes if you are going to develop, if you have included a web, it meant that you are going to use web or you are going to use Tomcat. If you are going to embed a Tomcat, so it assumes that by default port is 8080. If you are included JPA in your class path and also included so data sources in your properties file, so it assumes that you would be requiring in the future. So it just compile all those things, create a common configuration. Let's say it's a common configuration for you, okay, and then it's create like a standalone application. So your application would be able to run in a standalone manner, so that it would be it would be able to everyone would be able to access it at all. So these are all these things are in theory. Definitely we'll go to the PPT and let's see if we can have more points. Okay, so okay, so basically these are some points which I just wanted to highlight. Okay, there is a no need of creation of the boilerplate code. Okay, boilerplate code are the configuration. So default configuration is already there. If you want to override, you can write it in application.properties or application.yaml file. Okay, plenty of Spring Boot starter. There is a lot of starter projects are there. Okay, that's already there. There we have to download. It automatically downloads its relevant dependencies, so that there is a no conflict in the version conflict in the dependency, because they are the well tested projects and quickly up and running. So it's a you just import a Spring Boot project in your vim and it's ready for the production, because it is ability to run in a standalone manner. Developer no need to deploy it in a Tomcat server or any other server to test it. So developer can do it over here. So what is the dev tools? Dev tools in another parent project, which is used to for the specifically for the developer mode, where people developers are developing some kind of code. There is kind of changes. So what it does, it automatically refresh, or you can say restart your server, so that a developer can see the changes and with the immediate effect. And if anything went wrong, he can roll back, or he can start with the like we can kind of do normal development. So embedded with the Tomcat, JT, and underflow support. So these are the servers which are supported by over here. Let's easier customization of the application properties. So there is a very easy customization. If you don't like any properties, if you want to override them, you can do it. Okay, easy management of the profiles with the specific properties. So profiles are nothing but properties file or relevant servers which you have created for a specific deployment pattern, or you can deployment server. Let's say we have a normally dev server, like for the development, QA for the testing, and stage, and then prod. Okay, so these are kind of profiles, whatever the profile you have set, the relevant or the same relevant property file will be picked up from the same location. Okay. Now, Spring Boot provides HTTP endpoints to access application internal like detailed metrics, application inner working, health, and status. So this is achieved by actuator. There is a starter project actuator. Okay, so what it does, if you have included this in your class path, it will create by default certain endpoints which are responsible for basically creating the health check and matrices. If you want to know what are the endpoint has been exposed to your application, that is also so we have a very, or you can say, no XML based configuration. We all can do the annotation based configuration except form.xml, except form.xml. Everything can be managed through the annotation. There is initializer. There is a basically I know 3 initializer basically through the web initializer is Spring Starter.io. There is a Spring Test Suite is there. It also give you to choose the flexibility, what are the dependency, what are the starter project you want, and also the CLI. C is a command line tool. Through that you can issue the command, and depending upon that, but I prefer the web version because it is a very good GUI, and where you can just tell what you want, and it would be, you will be able to download it. In some another lecture, or in one of the any of the lecture, I'll definitely show how we are going to do it. You must be find links below that for the same, okay, in future. But okay, so Spring Initializer provide a project generator to make a support with a certain technology stack from the beginning. You can create a skeleton project with the web data access and like relational, no SQL, cloud, and messaging support. So all these things you can be able to do it. Okay, so these are the difference between the Spring Boot and Spring. Spring Framework is the most popular application development framework for the Java. The main feature of the Spring Framework is dependency injection or inversion of control. With the help of a Spring Framework, we can develop a loosely coupled application. It is better to use the application type or the characteristics are the purely defined. Okay, the Spring Boot. Spring Boot is a module of the Spring Framework. It's nothing as a kind of module or add-on, or it's built on the top of the Spring Framework. It allows us to build a standalone application with a minimum or zero configuration. There is a very low configuration is required. It is better to use if we want to develop the simple Spring-based application or the RESTful service. So I just want to quickly go through another slide. Spring Framework is widely used for the Java EE framework building application. Spring Boot framework is widely used for to develop the REST API. So it was basically a web API where things were initially we have been bundled with the WAR file. So in that particular case, we are just preferring kind of a Spring Boot application, but nowadays microservices in a picture with the huge details. So everybody is going to REST API with the evolution of the front-end applications, front-end APIs, or front-end JS framework like Angular and React. So it's aimed to simplify the Java EE development that makes developer more productive. Okay, they are a whole idea is to more productive. It aims to shorten the length of and provide the easy way to develop, and like it's a pretty much shorter code as compared to Spring. The primary feature of the Spring framework is dependency injection. It's a DI that we have already talked about. The Spring features of the Spring Boot is auto configuration. Its main feature is to auto configure. It automatically configure the classes based on the requirement. It helps to make the things simpler by allowing us to loosely coupled application. If there is a loosely coupled model, and it helps to create a standalone application where we do not need to deploy our WAR file into a server. It does not provide support for in-memory databases. There is no support as of now for in-memory database, but it offers several plugins for working with embedded and in-memory databases such like S2. Okay, So I hope you guys like this video, and thank you very much.